Hello everyone, I am Mr. Night Truth. I know many of you enjoy listening to these videos as you fall asleep. So before you drift off, I'd love for you to leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. And if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, now let's get comfortable, relax, and let's go down into the story.
Story number 1, I swear to you, the city was breathing. The walls pulsed, the streets hummed, and when I touched the stone, it exhaled. But the worst part isn't that we found something alive down there. It's that it followed us back. You ever have a memory that doesn't fit anywhere? Like a photograph you swear you took, but the background keeps changing every time you look at it. That's what the dive feels like. I remember it perfectly. And yet, parts of it don't belong to me anymore. It was supposed to be routine. A survey mission. Depth, 4 through 200 meters. Objective, map what sonar had picked up as anomalous geometric formations. That's what they called it in the report. Not ruins, not city, just anomalous geometry. We left port just after dawn. I remember the light, how gold it looked on the water. Though Mara swore later it was still dark when we deployed. She's wrong about that. I'm sure she's wrong. The company funding us was called Deep Reach International, though their logo was blank on most of the equipment. They gave us new suits, new oxygen systems, even a prototype submersible, the Delphus 2. State of the art, they said. Only the serial numbers had been scraped off the console. Like someone didn't want us knowing where it came from. We descended around 0800 hours. At least, I think it was 800. The dive log says 0913. Mara said we were still calibrating at 0940. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we reached a point where sunlight simply gave up. The blue faded to ink, the ink to black, and the black to something heavier. Pressure pressed against the hull like a living hand. Mara was next to me, her breath steady over comms. Depth 2000. Everything stable. Her voice was calm. Too calm. She'd always had that tone when she was nervous. I told her to keep recording, even though my own cam kept glitching. Flickers like static underwater. Light distortion where there shouldn't be any. At 3600 meters, the sonar began to spike. Something metallic, or stone, was reflecting back complex angles. Not random, designed. You're seeing this, right? I asked. Yeah, Mara said. It looks like... She cut off, because the first shape had come into view. At first I thought it was a shipwreck, but then the beam widened, and I saw it stretched far beyond any hull or keel. Walls, archways, streets, buried beneath centuries of coral and silt, yet impossibly intact. Columns spiraled up from the seabed like ribs of some dead god. Mara whispered, "It's a city." And I remember laughing, nervous, shaky laughter, because it couldn't be. Cities don't end up 4 kilometers under. That's when the comms began to distort. At first, just static, crackling, then a sound underneath it, a low rhythmic pressure, like someone exhaling right into the microphone. Ha, ha. I thought it was the hull venting, but then it repeated, synced perfectly with my own breathing. Eli. "Do you hear that?" Mara asked. I didn't answer. I was staring through the viewport, because in the beam of the sub's light, something moved between the ruins. It wasn't fish. It was too slow, too deliberate. A shimmer of pale green against the dark stone, like bioluminescence pulsing through veins. The shape vanished before I could focus. I told Mara it was a reflection. I remember saying that over and over. Just light, but the truth is, the light blinked back. We anchored near a massive archway, half buried in sediment. I noted the coordinates, though somehow they're missing from the data file now. I said we'd collect samples, record structure data, and ascend by 1300 hours. Mara agreed, but when I reviewed the footage later, her voice was gone from that entire section. Just me, talking to myself. Still, I can hear her breathing through the comms when I play it back. I can hear her. When we finally reached the archway, the current shifted, the silt parted, revealing carvings beneath. Spirals, eyes, hands. They looked almost human, but wrong, as if drawn by something that had only heard of humans. And there, between the engravings, the stone pulsed. Just once, like a heartbeat. Did you feel that? I asked. Mara didn't respond. Her oxygen readings spiked. She was panicking. The sub shook, faintly at first, then violently. Equipment clattered. Alarms flared red. I remember grabbing her wrist, cold through the glove, and shouting that we needed to go, but she was staring through the viewport, whispering something I couldn't make out. When I followed her gaze, I saw a faint shape rising from the ruins, tall, like a tower, but fluid, breathing with the current. And then the comms went dead. When I came to, I was on the surface. The Delphus 2 half flooded, gauges shattered. The company's recovery team pulled me out. They said I'd been under for 3 hours longer than planned. Mara wasn't there. I told them she was fine, that she'd made it back before me, but no one had seen her. They showed me the dive footage later. The sub's interior feed stops exactly 30 seconds before I say, "We should turn back." After that, black screen. No one believes me when I say I heard her voice days after. That sometimes, when I play the recordings, I still hear breathing on the line. Not through speakers, but behind me. They call it trauma, decompression psychosis, survivor's guilt. Maybe they're right. Maybe I imagined the city. But there's one thing they can't explain. The sample I brought back. The stone that pulses faintly, even now. Under the microscope, sometimes, late at night, I think I hear it, that slow exhale through the walls, and that's how I know. The dive didn't end when we surfaced. Camera flickers. A faint whisper of Mara's voice overlaps the static, saying, "You shouldn't have left me down there." You know what's strange? Silence isn't quiet underwater. It hums, it presses against you. Even when you're back on land, you can still feel it, like the ocean's holding on. That's what I kept telling myself after the dive, that the noise I kept hearing, in the shower, in the pipes, in the static of the TV, was just my body remembering pressure, that it wasn't real. But the recordings say otherwise. Deep Reach collected all our data the same night they rescued me. They said it was for analysis. But 3 days later, a courier dropped off a drive at my apartment. No note, no sender, just a silver case labelled Archive Dive, 47B. Inside were 2 audio files and a corrupted video feed. When I first played the audio, it was nothing but garbled static, pops and hisses, like the ocean chewing up sound. But after a few seconds, something shifted. Underneath the static, beneath the hiss, a voice murmured my name. Eli. Soft, close, like someone whispering right against my ear. I froze. The waveform spiked exactly at that moment. I replayed it again and again, every time the same thing. My name drawn out in Mara's tone, except wrong. Slower, thick, like it was being pulled through water. I sent the file to Deep Reach's comms specialist. He said there was no human speech in the sample. Just pressure distortion. Funny thing though, the night after that call, his email account was deleted. The entire chain vanished. I started recording my own update logs, mostly to prove I wasn't losing it. That's what this footage is from. I thought if I spoke directly to the camera, documented what I was hearing, I could make sense of it. The first few nights were fine, just silence or the low hum of the fridge. Then around 2 a.m. on the fourth night, I caught something new, a faint thump, like breathing against the microphone. I checked the vents, empty. I unplugged the camera. The noise continued. Ha, ha, exactly like in the sub. I told myself it was plumbing, air pressure, an echo, anything logical. But when I turned up the gain on the recording, I could hear words forming under the breath. Broken fragments. Too deep. You left her. Wake up. The words twisted as I listened, like they changed depending on what I was afraid of hearing. That's when I realized the voice wasn't coming from the recordings. It was coming through them. I showed the footage to a friend from the university, Sophia. She used to joke that I was the scientist who saw ghosts. At first, she laughed. Then she went quiet. "Eli," she said, "there's a face behind you." I turned. Nothing there. When I rewound the footage, the frame glitched. And for 1 second, right behind my shoulder, something flickered. Not a reflection, not a shadow. A pale face, eyes open, hair drifting like it was underwater. The next frame was empty again. I told Sophia it was compression error, a trick of pixels, but she wouldn't come back after that. She stopped answering calls. Now whenever I play that clip, the distortion starts earlier, and I swear I can hear her voice in it too. Sometimes I wake up with the headset still on. I must fall asleep watching the old dive logs. The screen loops the same 10 seconds, the part before the blackout, the last moment before the city swallowed us. If you slow it down, you can see something. Right before the video cuts, Mara's hand lifts toward the viewport. Her finger points at something beyond the glass, something glowing faintly in the dark. People online think it's a fish, a jelly, whatever, but I've looked frame by frame. There's a pattern to the light, like symbols, like language. I've started sketching them, on napkins, envelopes, anything. They come to me while I sleep. When I wake, my fingers are stained with ink I don't remember touching. Deep Reach stopped returning my messages last week. Their number reroutes to a deadline. But yesterday morning, someone slid an envelope under my door. No name. Inside, a single piece of waterproof paper, like the kind used on dives. Scrawled in smudged graphite were 6 words. "Don't listen to the breathing, Eli." I thought it was a prank, until I noticed the handwriting. It was Mara's, except I never told anyone what her handwriting looked like. I keep thinking about something she said before the dive. If you listen long enough, the ocean starts to sound like a heartbeat. Back then, I laughed, told her she was being poetic. Now, when I turn off all the lights and let the room fill with the sound of my own breathing, I swear I can hear another rhythm underneath, slow and heavy, echoing my pulse. It's like it's matching me, like it's learning me. I tried deleting the recordings tonight, every folder, every file, but when I checked the recycle bin, there was a new one waiting, time-stamped for tomorrow. Its name was just one word: return. I don't know if I'm hearing Mara or something that sounds like her, but I can feel it. Every time I close my eyes, it's closer, the whispers clearer, the breathing deeper. The ocean doesn't let go, does it? It takes pieces of you, sound, thought, memory, and replaces them with echoes. And if you listen too long, you start to echo back. A low hum builds under the footage. Eli looks off screen, whispering, "Did you hear that?" The sound fades into rhythmic breathing. You know that feeling when a room feels alive? When you're sitting there, still as stone, but you can swear the air's moving around you, like the walls are breathing in sync with your pulse. That's how it started. I hadn't left my apartment in 3 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear it. The same rhythm I'd heard in the deep, slow, heavy, patient, the heartbeat of something enormous. I thought if I went back to the data, the sonar maps, the footage, anything, I could make sense of it. So I started piecing it all together on my wall. Printouts, notes, drawings. The same spiraling symbols Mara pointed at before the blackout. The funny thing is, they look like lungs, or maybe gills. On the 4th night, I recorded another log. You've probably seen the clip. It's the one where the camera shakes, the lights flicker, and I say something about pressure memory. That wasn't an act. When the light cut out, I could hear movement behind the plaster. Not rats, not pipes. Something slower, something wet, a drag, a breath. I pressed my ear against the wall and felt it vibrate. Subtle, like the wall itself was expanding and contracting. I told myself I was imagining it, that I'd gone too long without sleep. But when I stepped back, I saw condensation forming where my breath hadn't touched. It spread across the paint in a circular pattern, like the surface of a lung. I remember whispering, "You're not real." And then, from inside the wall, a voice whispered back, "Neither are you." I don't remember screaming, but the audio shows I did. I threw the camera, cracked the lens, but even after I unplugged everything, I could still hear the sound, the low exhale echoing through the vents. So I did what any rational person would do, right? I went back. Deep Reach had locked the docks after what happened, but I still had my access badge. I told myself I just wanted closure, that I'd leave flowers for Mara at the launch site. But the truth? I wasn't visiting, I was answering. The ocean was calling, and I was done pretending not to hear it. I launched the Delphus 2 replica I'd been restoring in secret. Older systems, analog readouts, manual ballast control. No comms this time, just me and the hum of the engines. The moment I broke the surface, I felt peace. The city wanted me back. As I descended, the water darkened again. That same dense, heavy black that isn't just the absence of light, but the presence of something else, something waiting. At 3,000 meters, I started hearing it again, not in my ears and inside my chest. My heartbeat began sinking with that low thrum. At 4,000 meters, the sonar picked up the ruins. Only they weren't ruins anymore, they were moving. The arches flexed like muscle. Streets rippled like the surface of a drum. Every structure pulsed in time with that invisible heartbeat. I whispered into the mic, even though no one was listening. "It's alive." And then I saw her, Mara, floating just above the seabed, her hair drifting like seaweed, eyes wide open. At least that's what I thought at first. When I moved closer, I realized her skin wasn't skin anymore. It shimmered, translucent, pulsing faintly with light beneath, like veins of coral glowing from within. She opened her mouth, and bubbles escaped, but no sound. Her jaw kept moving, shaping words I couldn't hear. I leaned closer to the viewport, and then, through the comms, faint and warbled, "Breathe with me." The cabin pressure spiked. My mask fogged. For a second, I couldn't tell if it was her voice or my own playing back through the headset. I should have ascended. I should have ended the dive, but I didn't, because the city was breathing with me. Every time I inhaled, the walls of the ruins expanded outward, releasing streams of glowing air, if you can even call it that. Shimmering currents that rose around Mara's shape. Every time I exhaled, the current drew back. pulling her closer. I reached out, hand against the glass, and for a split second, she reached back. The light around her hand flared, and the cabin flooded with brightness. When it faded, she was gone, and something else was there, a reflection, but wrong. It looked like me, but its face was calm, eyes open wide, lips moving soundlessly. Behind it, the city pulsed faster. The ruins were breathing harder. Then the comms flared alive again, hissing static, and underneath it, my own voice whispering, "You shouldn't have come back." I woke up hours later, drifting on the surface. The sub's lights were dead, my oxygen half empty. My body ached, like I'd been crushed and rebuilt. I don't remember surfacing. I don't remember leaving the city, but there's footage of me crawling out of the sub, soaking, shivering, repeating the same phrase over and over. "It's awake." The doctors said I'd been missing for 2 days. Deep Reach denied ever approving a second dive. They told me Mara's body was never found, but last night, when I took off my shirt, I saw something under my skin. Faint blue veins, glowing softly when I breathed. I think I brought part of the city back with me. Sometimes when the apartment goes quiet, I can hear the walls again. That same deep rhythm. Not around me, inside me. And every time I exhale, I swear I feel the room exhale too. The footage flickers. A faint pulse of light moves across Eli's arm as he whispers, "She's still down there, waiting." They say trauma changes your perception of sound, that when your brain can't process what it heard, it just keeps replaying it until you find meaning. If that's true, then I've been replaying the ocean inside my head. It's been 11 days since I came back. I haven't told Deep Reach. I stopped answering their messages. They'll never understand. None of them heard it breathe. None of them felt it breathing with them. At first, I thought it was just memory, pressure sickness, the kind of hallucinations they warn divers about. But memory doesn't move on its own. It doesn't whisper your name through air vents. Last night, the sink started humming, a soft, rhythmic vibration that matched my pulse exactly. When I turned the tap, the water came out cloudy, faintly luminescent. I touched it. My fingers tingled, and for just a moment, it pulsed back. I've stopped going near mirrors. The reflection doesn't sink anymore. It lags, maybe half a second behind me. When I blink, it doesn't. When I turn my head, its mouth moves like it's trying to form a word. Once, I got close enough to see the glow under its skin. Faint blue veins, same as mine. Same pattern as the city's markings, I whispered. "What are you?" And the reflection smiled, my smile, and said, "You brought me here." I smashed the mirror. It didn't break right. The glass folded, rippled, like the surface of a wave. I started hearing knocking that night. Soft at first, then deliberate. It came from the walls, the floor, the pipes, always 3 knocks, like someone waiting for me to answer. I tried recording it, but the moment I hit record, the knocking stopped, and in the playback, there was only my own breathing, except between the breaths faintly, Mara's voice. "Let it in." I can't tell if I'm awake anymore. I see things move when I blink, the shadows stretching longer, pulsing in rhythm with that same impossible heartbeat. I've been watching the light in my veins grow brighter every night. It spreads further, arms, neck, chest. I should be terrified, but I'm not, because part of me thinks this is what it wanted all along, for me to carry it, to surface for it. Sometimes I hear water dripping even when everything's dry. Sometimes I dream of the city again, only it's not underwater anymore. It's above, hanging in the sky like a glowing reef, its walls breathing with the clouds. In the dreams, Mara's there too. She doesn't look dead. She looks changed. Her eyes glow faintly, same blue as mine. And she says things like, "It's only dying if you fight it." And then she reaches for me, her skin rippling like water. I wake up gasping, lungs full of air that tastes like salt. This morning I found something on the kitchen table, a damp patch shaped like a handprint, smaller than mine. I wiped it off. It came back an hour later. The fridge hums in rhythm with my breathing now. Even the walls expand slightly when I exhale. I've measured it. The drywall flexes by less than a millimeter, but it moves. The apartment isn't just haunted. It's alive, and I think it's growing. I tried calling Sophia again, straight to voicemail. I left her one last message. I told her not to come over, that the city wasn't gone, it was spreading, that I could feel it in the air, in the plumbing, in me. After that, I unplugged the router, turned off my phone, and sealed the drains with tape. But still, I can hear the ocean. It's louder now. The rhythm isn't distant anymore. It's inside the walls, under the floorboards, under my skin. Every time I breathe, it breathes deeper. Every time my heart beats, it answers. And lately, I think it's been dreaming through me. Just before dawn, I woke to a sound like rushing waves. Only I wasn't near the ocean. I sat up and the floor was wet, cold water seeping up from the boards, clear and glowing faintly blue. It pooled around my feet, and when I tried to move, I realized it wasn't just water. It was breathing. I felt it rise, slow, patient, over my ankles, my knees. It didn't drown me. It absorbed me. Every surface in the apartment began to ripple. The ceiling sagged like the underside of a tide. The walls shifted with each breath, closer, tighter. In the reflection of the window, I saw movement behind me. Silhouettes forming in the glow, dozens of them. Shapes of people drifting upward like they were underwater. And among them, Mara, her face calm, serene, like she'd been waiting. "You surfaced," she said. "Now we can too." When I came to, the floor was dry again. No water, no glow, just the faint sound of breathing coming from above me. Not through the walls this time, from the ceiling. It's been hours now, and I can still hear it. That slow inhale, that deep exhale, matching mine. And I've realized something. I didn't bring the city back. It followed me. Eli looks up. Camera flickers. Ceiling bulges faintly like something moving beneath the plaster. The lights dim, then pulse with a heartbeat. It started with a drip. A single drop of water fell from the ceiling, landing on my hand. It was warm, salted. When I looked up, the plaster was swelling, expanding and contracting like a living lung. Then came another drop, then another, until the rhythm matched my pulse. I think it's been 3 days since the last recording, or maybe it's only been one night stretched too long. Time feels elastic now, like it's underwater. The breathing hasn't stopped. If anything, it's grown closer. Not just above me anymore, but around. Every wall, every surface vibrating with that same steady inhale. The air smells like brine. I can't tell where the ocean ends and the apartment begins. Last night, I heard footsteps from upstairs, but there is no upstairs. I'm on the top floor. They paced for hours, soft, wet steps that left faint ripples in the ceiling paint. Sometimes they'd stop right above me. Sometimes they'd whisper. At first, it was just murmurs, but then the words began to form. I recognized them. Equations, coordinates, the same ones carved into the temple walls down in the city. That's when I realized the city isn't buried beneath the sea anymore. It's reconstructing itself through me, through my surroundings, through every molecule of moisture I brought back. I tried to fight it this morning. Opened every window, turned on the heat, tried to dry the air out. The walls reacted. A low groan, like a whale's call echoing through miles of pressure. The ceiling began to leak faster, dripping in rhythmic patterns, concentric circles, perfect, deliberate, like writing. When I stood beneath it, the drops landed on my forehead, each one burning slightly before cooling. It wasn't random. It was Morse code. Come up. I don't know what it meant at first. Come up? I was already on the surface. But then it hit me. Maybe up didn't mean higher. Maybe it meant through the ceiling. Through the world we think we know. I pressed my ear against the wall, and I heard it. Faint but undeniable. The same currents I'd felt underwater. The same hum of life, and underneath it all, something vast moving, stretching, like tectonic plates turning in their sleep. And then, clear as air, Eli, breathe with me. It was Mara's voice. The ceiling began to glow, faint blue veins spreading like roots under the paint. The same glow as my skin when I touch water now. I watched, hypnotized, as the cracks widened, forming spirals that pulsed with every heartbeat. A drop fell onto my lips. It tasted like the ocean floor. Metallic, ancient, alive. I couldn't help it. I whispered back, "I'm here." The glow brightened, and I heard a deep, wet crack. Plaster rained down. Water gushed, but it didn't fall. It rose. A column of glowing water pushed upward, reaching toward the ceiling, and I was inside it before I realized what was happening. It wasn't drowning me. It was pulling me through. The ceiling opened like a wound. Beyond it wasn't wood or insulation or sky. It was ocean, an endless, inverted sea suspended above the apartment. And within it, towers of coral and stone, flickering like slow lightning. The city. It had followed me here completely. Or maybe I had followed it. The shapes moved within it, figures walking upside down, their steps sending ripples downward through the ceiling. One of them turned, Mara. Her hair floated around her like seaweed, her eyes glowing faintly. She mouthed something. One word I couldn't hear until she reached through the water and touched my chest. Home. I don't remember what happened after that. Only that I woke up on the floor, soaked and shivering. Everything was dry again, the glow gone, the ceiling sealed as if it had never opened. But the air still moved with me. When I breathe, the walls breathe back. When I blink, the lights flicker like waves. I looked in the mirror for the first time since the dive. My reflection didn't lag anymore. It smiled. "You surfaced," it said. "Now we rise." And then I saw it, behind me. Faint outlines pressing through the wallpaper, shapes forming under the paint, hands, faces, not ghosts, passengers. They were all surfacing. I turned on my recorder again. My voice doesn't sound like mine anymore. It echoes slightly as if recorded underwater. If anyone finds this, if anyone from Deep Reach hears me, don't go back to those coordinates. Don't send another team. It's not ruins down there. It's a seed, and it's already growing here. The floor ripples beneath me as I speak. The air is dense, wet, humming with electricity. I can see movement inside the walls. Translucent shapes gliding upward like jellyfish. They're not here to destroy. They're here to merge. Maybe that's what the city always was. Not a structure, but a transition. Between what breathes air and what breathes water. And I was the bridge. There's light coming from the ceiling again. Blue, soft, calling. It's time to go up. Recorder clatters to the floor. The microphone picks up the sound of water rising. Then silence. Followed by one slow, collective breath. Story number 2. I know what you're thinking. No one could have survived that depth. But I did. At least, I think I did. The others? They're still down there. Or maybe they never were. There's a black box recording they won't release. They say it's corrupted, but I've heard it. And there's a voice on it, my voice, screaming something I don't remember saying. This is what really happened down there, if you believe me at all. You ever stare into something so deep that you start to feel it staring back? That's how the Mariana Trench felt that morning, like an open eye, unblinking, waiting. Everyone on the surface was calling it a historic dive, but to me, it felt more like penance. They told me I was lucky to be leading this expedition, the first to reach what we called Point 9, the deepest mapped fissure of the trench. What they didn't know was that I'd been down there before, not this far, not officially, but far enough to know that luck had nothing to do with survival. The research vessel above us was just a fading hum now, shrinking into the grey mist of the surface. Below, nothing. No light, no sound, just the metallic heartbeat of our submersible. Erebus 2. I named it myself. Elena never liked that name. Still think that's funny? She asked, glancing up from her console. Her voice cut through the mechanical groans. Naming our sub after a god of darkness? I smiled without looking at her. He wasn't a god of darkness. Erebus was the darkness itself. Yeah, she muttered. Comforting thought when you're 7 miles under. Elena always had that tone, half jest, half warning. She'd been my student once, before she became my co-pilot. Before she started asking questions I didn't want answered. The comms crackled. Surface control to Erebus 2. Confirm pressure reading. I thumbed the mic. Pressure stable. Visibility near 0. Beginning descent. A pause. Static. Then a voice that wasn't supposed to be there. Don't go deeper. Elena froze. Did you just... It's the interference, I said quickly, tapping the console. Echo from the previous transmission. But the sound didn't fade like an echo. It lingered, soft, mechanical, repeating in a whisper. My own voice, warped through static. Don't go deeper. The instruments flickered. Our depth monitor spiked, then leveled off. Elena frowned, typing furiously. That's not interference, Alex. It's on loop. Signal bleed, I insisted, though my throat was dry. Could be our own audio bouncing through the sonar relay. I knew it wasn't. The relay was one way. I focused on the viewport instead, forcing calm. Darkness pressed against the glass like oil. Small bioluminescent creatures drifted past. Ghostly flashes of blue and green, brief as dying thoughts. Their movement reminded me of something I'd seen once before, but I pushed that memory down. That dive had gone wrong fast. 3 lives lost, but the report said equipment failure, and I'd signed it myself. Now I was funding this mission privately to complete the research. That's what I told Elena. But in truth, I needed to know what had called to us from the dark that day. What had taken them 5,000 meters? 6, 7. Alex, Eleanor said quietly, why are we really doing this? Her reflection hovered beside mine in the glass, pale and uncertain. I told you, to collect geological samples. No, she said, that's not it. I've read the old logs. I know about the first Erebus. I turned sharply. You shouldn't have done that. I had to, because I found something strange in the data. Right before the transmission ended, there was... Her voice cut off as the cabin lights dimmed. The power flickered once, twice, then stabilized in a sickly red hue. Backup systems, I muttered, checking the panel. Just a voltage dip. But the pressure gauge had jumped again, an impossible reading. It claimed we were sinking faster than freefall, hundreds of meters per second. The hull creaked, a groan deep enough to rattle my teeth. Elena gripped her seat. "We need to ascend, now." "Negative," I said automatically. "The instruments are glitching." "We're fine." She looked at me like she didn't believe it, and maybe she was right not to. The whisper came again, faint but clear through the comms. This time it wasn't my voice alone. There was another, layered beneath mine, speaking in unison, half a second behind. "Don't go deeper." The sound crawled into my ears, familiar in a way I couldn't explain. I'd heard that same tone before, years ago through another sub's comms, seconds before the whole gave way. Elena slammed the comm switch. "Surface control, do you copy? This is Erebus 2, we're detecting static." I reached over and shut the line. "Alex!" "Stop," I said. "You'll make it worse." She stared at me wide-eyed. "You're hearing it too, aren't you?" I didn't answer. Instead, I turned back to the viewport. The outside world was ink black, the floodlights only illuminating drifting particles. Tiny motes of dust, or maybe ash. Then something moved. A shape, barely visible, slow, deliberate. Watching us. My pulse thudded. I leaned closer, fogging the glass. "Did you see that?" "See what?" I blinked. The shape was gone. Maybe it was never there. Maybe it was just the reflection of my own face, warped by the curve of the viewport. But for a heartbeat, I could have sworn it was smiling back at me. Elena unbuckled, voice trembling. "We're not alone down here, Alex. Don't say that. Then tell me what's out there." I didn't have an answer. My hands shook as I adjusted the stabilizers. The hull groaned again, a low, human-sounding moan. "Pressure holding," I lied. She didn't believe me. I didn't believe me. The whisper came again, closer this time, as though inside the cabin. "Don't go deeper." Elena's eyes widened. "It's saying your name." I turned toward her slowly. "What?" She pointed to the comm speaker. It hissed once, then formed words. "Alex, you shouldn't have come back." I froze. My throat went dry. Elena backed away from the panel. "What is that?" I stared at the light blinking on the console, the one linked to external transmissions. It wasn't receiving from above. It was transmitting from inside. I switched it off. The whisper stopped. Silence filled the cabin, heavy and endless. Elena whispered, "We should go back." But the truth was, we were already too deep to turn around, and something down there already knew our names. I didn't tell her that. I just said, "Hold steady. We're continuing descent." And as the sub drifted lower into the dark, I could have sworn I heard that same voice again. Soft, patient, waiting. "Welcome back, Alex." There's a sound the ocean makes when it realizes you've gone too deep. It's not the creak of metal or the hiss of pressure. It's quieter than that. A low hum, almost human, like a voice trying to remember how to speak. That's what we heard as the Erebus 2 drifted past the 7-mile mark. Elena sat rigid beside me, her hands gripping the console so tightly her knuckles went white. Every few seconds she glanced toward the comms unit, as if expecting it to start whispering again. I pretended not to notice. I'd already disabled the transmitter. At least, I thought I had. "Depth reading?" I asked, breaking the silence. 7,400 meters, she said, voice trembling. "Shouldn't we stop here? That's the limit for this hull." "We didn't come here to stop." She shot me a look, half fear, half defiance. "You're acting like this is personal." I didn't respond. It was personal. The floodlights illuminated the abyss ahead, an endless wall of black water. For a brief second, the light caught something reflective, smooth, curved, and massive. Then it moved. Elena gasped. "There, did you see that?" "Probably a whale carcass," I muttered, though there were no whales this deep. Nothing biological can survive here. Then what the hell was it? I didn't answer. Instead, I checked the audio feed. The hum we'd heard earlier was still there. Steady, rhythmic, almost like breathing. Don't go deeper. The words surfaced again. Faint, but undeniable. My stomach turned. I looked over the waveform on the screen. It wasn't coming from the comms. It was coming from the internal cabin mic. Our own atmosphere. Eleanor, I said slowly, run a scan on interior acoustics. Why? Because something's picking up sound inside. She hesitated, then typed a sequence. The sonar pinged once, twice, then froze. A shape appeared on the internal monitor, an outline, not outside the sub, inside. Elena's breath hitched. That can't be right. Glitch, I whispered, but I could hear the lie as it left my lips. The power flickered again, dimming the cabin to a dull red glow. For a moment, it looked like there was someone standing behind her in the reflection on the viewport. A figure, tall, faceless, still. I blinked, and it was gone. Elena turned toward me. Alex, I read the reports from the first Erebus, the one that imploded. You were on that mission, weren't you? No, I said too quickly. I supervised from the surface. She held my gaze. Then why does your name appear twice in the crew log? The cabin went silent. The hum outside grew louder, like an approaching engine. But it wasn't machinery. It was something alive, moving through the water in slow, deliberate arcs. I turned the external camera. Through the static and swirling sediment, something glimmered. An eye, huge, pale, lidless. For a moment it reflected the sub's light straight back at us. Elena whispered, "It's watching us." I muted the feed. It's not watching anything. It's just pressure playing tricks. But the reflection didn't fade. Even with the lights off, the shape of that eye lingered, burned into the dark. The oxygen monitor beeped. Elena scrambled to adjust the valves. CO2 levels rising. Something's blocking the scrubbers. Bypass them manually. I'm trying. Her hands shook. Alex, if we don't ascend now, we'll lose air in 30 minutes. We're not leaving, I said quietly. She froze. What? We're close. I can feel it. Her voice broke. Feel what? I didn't have an answer. I just stared out into the abyss. Somewhere out there, beyond the hull, something pulsed in time with my heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. The sub rocked slightly, not from current, from contact. Elena screamed, "Something's hitting us!" I switched on the exterior cam again. Nothing but darkness. Then a shape, long fingers sliding across the viewport like tendrils of shadow. They left trails of frost in their wake. The metal frame groaned. A hairline crack appeared on the inner pane. My breath caught. "Alex!" she shouted. "We need to go now." "Hold steady," I said, though I could barely keep my voice from shaking. "If we ascend too fast..." "Too fast? Are you insane? We're being attacked." "It's not attacking," I said. "It's studying." She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Then the hum stopped. Total silence. The sudden quiet was worse than the noise. It was expectant. Eleanor whispered, "Where did it go?" And then, out of nowhere, the comms burst to life again, filled with static and voices. A dozen overlapping, distorted versions of my own voice, whispering the same thing over and over. We shouldn't have come back. Elena covered her ears. "Turn it off," I tried. The switch wouldn't respond. The whispers kept growing, louder, until it felt like they were coming from inside our heads. I slammed the console. "Stop!" And just like that, it did. Silence. I realized then that Eleanor wasn't moving. She was staring through the viewport, eyes wide, mouth open slightly. I followed her gaze. Outside the glass, something was pressed against it. A face. My face. I lunged backward, heart pounding. The reflection tilted its head in the opposite direction, like a mirror that had forgotten how to mimic. Then it smiled. The lights in the cabin flickered once more, and the reflection vanished. Eleanor gasped for air. What the hell was that? I don't know. But I did know. I'd seen that same face before, on a dead monitor feed, years ago, the day the first Erebus was lost. I gripped the controls, my voice barely a whisper. Prepare for deeper scan. Eleanor's eyes widened. No way. We're going back to the surface. We can't, I said, staring into the void. We've already gone too far. A faint tapping echoed from the outer hull, slow, deliberate, rhythmic, like knuckles on glass. They say water doesn't compress. That's a lie. At this depth, even your thoughts feel squeezed, crushed, until they stop belonging to you. You start hearing them echo back, like something else is thinking with you. The Erebus 2 had gone silent. No comms, no sonar, not even the hum of the engines, just the pressure, groaning through the hull like a living thing. Elena sat motionless beside me, her lips moving soundlessly. I didn't ask what she was saying. I didn't want to know. Then came the tapping. 3 slow knocks from outside. A pause. Then 3 again. "Alex," she whispered. "It's copying us." Copying what? Our heartbeat. I checked the monitor. The sonar showed no movement, just a single static blip, pulsing in rhythm with the sound. But it wasn't outside the sub anymore. The ping was internal. "Elena," I said softly, "seal the inner hatch." She hesitated. "You think it's in here?" I didn't answer. As she reached for the latch, a low groan reverberated through. The cabin, deep and mournful, like a whale song, slowed down to a human cry. The lights flickered blue, then red, casting long distorted shadows across the control panels. The voice came next. Not through the comms, through the pressure itself. You could feel it, like words vibrating in your chest. "Why did you come back, Alex?" I froze. My name again. Elena looked around wildly. "Who said that?" I forced a laugh that didn't sound human. "Pressure hallucinations happens in isolation." "Hallucinations don't know your name," she screamed. The gauges started spinning wildly, dials clattering against the glass. Oxygen levels dropped faster than physics should allow. I tried to reset the system, but every switch I touched sparked. "Manual override," I shouted. "Pull the intake valve." She obeyed, breath ragged. "It's jammed." Then, faintly, through the intercom I had disabled, a voice crackled. "I can help you, Alex. You just have to listen." Elena's head snapped toward the speaker. "That's the same voice from before." "No," I whispered. "It's different now. Because now it wasn't mimicking me. It sounded calm, familiar, almost comforting. "Elena," I said. "Shut it off." She hesitated. "It's saying your name again. Now." She yanked the power feed, plunging the cabin into darkness. For a few seconds, all I could hear was her breathing, and mine. Then something else joined in, a third breath, wet, slow. From behind us, I turned the emergency light on. The rear hatch was dripping. Condensation? No, water. Beads sliding down metal as though the sea was seeping through the seams. I crawled closer, shining the flashlight on the bolts. The pressure gauge screamed red. "Alex," Eleanor said softly, "we're sinking again." Impossible. I checked the depth meter. Negative readings. It was counting below the seabed. "How can we go deeper?" she whispered. I didn't know, or maybe I did. The floor vibrated, a deep tremor running through the sub. Then, bang! A metallic thud from beneath. Something had latched onto us. Elena screamed, "It's dragging us down!" I grabbed the emergency controls, activating ballast release. The levers wouldn't move. It was like the entire console was welded shut. "Let it take you," the voice said again, almost pleading now. "You were never meant to leave." I slammed my fist against the panel. "Shut up!" Eleanor turned on me. "Who are you talking to?" I didn't answer, because part of me wasn't sure. For a moment, the pressure sound faded, replaced by a distant echo, like laughter rippling through the hull. And then, whispering my own words, sentences I hadn't spoken aloud since the first Erebus mission. They trusted me. It wasn't my fault. I didn't seal the hatch fast enough. I clutched my head. "Stop! Stop it! Alex, what are you hearing?" "I don't..." My voice cracked. "I don't remember." That was the truth. The accident report was a blur in my mind. One moment of light, then the crushing dark. I'd always told myself I'd survived by chance. But maybe I'd chosen to survive. The water level began rising beneath our feet. A thin trickle from the hatch spreading across the floor. Elena stared at it, paralyzed. "Seal it," I shouted. She didn't move. "Elena!" Her voice came out soft, almost peaceful. "It's not leaking in. It's condensing out." "What?" She pointed. The droplets were forming not from outside, but from the air inside the sub, coalescing like sweat on glass, and the water was warm. I felt it with my fingertips. Too warm, like breath. Something pressed against the viewport from outside, slow, deliberate. A pale hand, human-shaped. Then another. Then a face, mine again, but bloated, distorted, eyes black as the trench. Elena sobbed. "That's not possible." The reflection mouthed something I couldn't hear. "Open the hatch." The pressure gauge went mad. The entire hull screamed like a living creature. Alarms blared, oxygen, temperature, structural stress, every warning flashing red. "Elena, hold on!" I shouted. She was crying now, shaking her head. "It wants you, Alex. It's not after me." Before I could answer, the sub lurched sideways. Gravity shifted, throwing us against the wall. My shoulder slammed into the control board. Sparks flew. The power flickered, then stabilized. The water was gone. The hull was silent again. I gasped for air. "Are you okay?" But Elena didn't respond. Her seat was empty. The straps hung loose, swaying. Elena. I searched the cabin, heart hammering. She was gone. No trace. The only sound left was the sonar pinging, slow and steady. I turned toward the console. The sonar wasn't blank anymore. It was showing 2 blips, one for the Erebus 2 and one moving inside the cabin, right behind me. I turned slowly. Nothing. Then the comms clicked on. "You left me down here once." My own voice. Calm. Almost gentle. "Don't make the same mistake again." The cabin lights went dark. They say you can't drown in memories, but they've never been this deep. When the lights came back on, I was alone, or thought I was. The Erebus 2 was steady again, oxygen stable, hull silent, too silent, like the ocean had decided to stop breathing. Elena's seat was empty. Her headset dangled, swinging slightly, as if she'd just stood up seconds ago. But there was no place to go, no sound, no trace. I reached for the internal recorder, pressing playback. Static filled the cabin, then a voice. Her voice. Alex. "Something's wrong with the data logs. They're from 3 years ago. Your dive, not ours. It's showing me down there already." I stopped the recording. My hands trembled. 3 years ago, the first Erebus mission. The one that never officially existed. The one I'd buried. I turned to the main display. The system had rebooted on its own. New data appeared, but the interface was wrong. Older, outdated, like it belonged to another era. Automatically read dive log, Erebus I, mission 07A, Dr. A. Marin. Command. My throat tightened. The footage began playing on its own. Grainy, grey, washed out. A view from inside the first sub. Same layout, same controls. Only one thing was different. The person sitting in the co-pilot seat. Elena. Her voice crackled through the speakers. Cheerful, confident. Recording initiated. Commence descente. I stared at the image, frozen. Same face, same voice. But she looked younger. Then my own voice came through. Pressure readings nominal. Maintain current trajectory. I watched myself, calm, composed, in full control. I didn't remember saying those words. The footage flickered. Static. A whisper through the speakers. My voice again, overlapping the recording. "You lied to her." The image distorted. My recorded self turned toward the camera, staring directly at me through the years. His lips moved, but the voice didn't match. "You left her down here." I slammed the console off. No, that's not real. The reflection on the dark screen didn't agree. Behind me, in the glass, I saw movement. A figure standing near the hatch. Elena. No response. I turned slowly. Nothing there. Just the hum of recycled air and the faint groan of metal. But when I looked back at the screen, the figure had moved closer in the reflection. Closer to me, my heart pounded. "Who's there?" The cabin speaker crackled to life. This time, the voice was clear, calm. My own, but older. "You shouldn't have come back, Alex. You promised you'd seal it." I backed away, shaking my head. "This isn't happening. This is oxygen deprivation, hallucination." "You keep saying that," it whispered, "even when they begged you." My mind flashed, just for a second, to the old dive. The sound of screaming through comms, the rush of flooding water, my hand on the hatch lever, and 3 faces behind the glass. One of them, Elena's. I had sealed it. I had left them. No, I muttered, pressing my palms to my head. No, that's not true. We lost power. I couldn't save them. The voice laughed softly. You saved yourself. I turned to the viewport, trying to breathe. Outside, something moved. Slow, graceful, human-shaped. The floodlights caught a glimpse of a face drifting by, pale as bone, eyes open, hair drifting like seaweed. It was her, Elena, or the one from before. I stumbled back, knocking over the tablet. The screen flickered again. The same dialogue replayed automatically, looping, glitching. The Elena on screen turned her head, and for the briefest moment, she looked straight out of the recording. Alex, help me. Then static. The pressure gauge beeped once, depth increasing. We were descending again. No, I whispered, lunging for the controls. Not again. The levers wouldn't move. Every button I pressed just made the hum louder. That's when I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, behind me. I didn't turn. I couldn't. Alex, the voice said softly. Do you know who you really are? I turned then, slowly, heart hammering. Elena was standing there, dripping wet, face pale, eyes black. Elena, she tilted her head. You shouldn't call me that. What do you mean? She stepped closer. You keep giving me her name, but I'm not her. My voice cracked. Then who are you? She smiled, a small knowing smile. You are. My breath stopped. What? She pointed toward the viewport. I turned. Outside, floating in the dark, was the wreck of the Erebus Eye, crumpled, broken, and inside its cracked hull, the bodies. I recognized each one, including my own. I stumbled back, choking. No, that can't be. The reflection in the glass didn't move with me. It leaned closer, whispering through 1,000 bubbles. We never made it back, Alex. The lights flickered again. The figure, Elena, or whatever she was, stepped backward into shadow, her face melting into the dark. You sealed us down here, she said, and now you've come back to finish it. I lunged toward her, but my hand passed through mist. The cabin went cold. Frost crept along the glass, and the hum outside returned, louder now, a chorus instead of one voice. They were all speaking, all the ones I'd left behind. Alex! 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 I collapsed against the console, covering my ears, screaming. What do you want from me? The voice answered softly, kindly, like an echo of myself. We just want you to remember. And then the hull creaked. The sub lurched upward violently. The pressure gone. The light returning. The surface approaching. I must have passed out because when I opened my eyes, I was staring at sunlight breaking through the waves above. We were ascending, but there was no sign of Elena. No trace of anything. Only one message flickering on the dead screen. Mission log complete. Subject recovered. I exhaled shakily. Recovered. The surface was close now, or maybe something was waiting there. When I finally broke through to the surface, the first thing I felt wasn't relief. It was dread. The Erebus II breached with a violent hiss, water cascading off its hull like blood washing off skin. Sunlight cut across the viewport, blinding, golden, too real after so much darkness. For a moment, I thought I was safe. Then I noticed the ocean was still, utterly still. No waves, no gulls, no horizon. Just an endless flat mirror reflecting the submersible back at me. The surface shouldn't look like that, not this far from shore. Not anywhere. I triggered the emergency beacon. The panel lit green, signaling transmission. But the external comms hissed back with static, followed by a voice. My voice. Signal received. Stay where you are. I froze. There was no one left in the cabin, yet the reply came from the rescue frequency. The same calm tone I used in mission recordings. I turned toward the screen, heart pounding. The feed from the hull camera showed the Erebus 2 floating peacefully. Then, something shifted in the reflection on the water. A second shape just behind it. It looked like another sub. Identical. The comms clicked again. Mission log complete. Dr. Marin. Debriefing in progress. A faint silhouette appeared in the mirrored sea. Figures standing on what looked like a deck, waving. A ship, rescue. But as I focused, the image wavered. The figures were all me. Hundreds of me. All staring, unmoving, their eyes pale as glass. Elena, I whispered. What did we do? For a moment I thought I heard her voice behind me. Soft, almost tender. You went too deep. I turned, but the cabin was empty. The navigation console flickered. A new file appeared automatically. Time-stamped today, 07/42/03. Its title, Autopsy Recording. Subject, Dr. Alex Marin. No, I breathed. That's not possible. The file opened on its own. Grainy video footage played. An autopsy table under white light. My body, pale, bloated from decompression, eyes half open. A hand reached into frame, pulling back the sheet. The examiner's voice. Cause of death. Oxygen toxicity and psychological collapse during the Erebus emission. Dated 3 years ago, the screen warped. I slammed the power off, but the words were still burned into my vision. If I died 3 years ago, then what was I now? A chill wind passed through the cabin. Impossible. This deep at sea with all hatches sealed. It smelled faintly of salt and iron. I turned toward the viewport again. The reflection of the ocean rippled. My reflection didn't. It stared back, expression calm, confident, like the version of me that never panicked, never lied, never sealed the hatch on his own crew. He smiled. You finally made it back, the reflection said. My chest tightened. Back from where? From where you belong. The water beneath us began to churn. Slowly, the mirrored surface cracked, as though glass were splintering under pressure. The other Erebus 2, the one beneath, began to rise, its lights glowing faintly red from the depths. I stared, mesmerized. Inside its cockpit, I saw the other Alex, the one who'd sealed the hatch. Calm, certain, a god in a metal tomb. And next to him, Elena, alive, smiling. They both raised their hands to the glass, mirroring me. Elena, I whispered, pressing my palm against the viewport. It's time to go home, she said. The sea exploded in light. Water roared. The Erebus 2 was lifted violently, thrown backward as if the ocean itself was rejecting it. I screamed, clutching the controls. Every system blared red. Pressure warnings, oxygen alerts, radiation spikes, every alarm screaming at once. Through the chaos, I could still hear her. You can't leave what's already below. Alex, you only surface once. The hull cracked. A sharp metallic groan filled the cabin, followed by the rush of freezing air. I reached for the emergency ascent lever, yanked it. Nothing. Then silence. Total, impossible silence. The alarm stopped. The ocean stopped. Even my heartbeat seemed to fade. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing on the deck of a rescue ship. The sky was grey, the water calm. A team in hazmat suits moved around me, scanning the recovered submersible. One of them approached, visor reflecting my face. Dr. Marin? He asked. I nodded weakly. Yes. He paused, checking a clipboard. That's impossible. Dr. Marin's remains were recovered 3 years ago. He turned the clipboard toward me. A photo was clipped to the file. My photo, my corpse. I stumbled backward. No, I'm alive. I just came back. He lowered his visor slightly. I saw his eyes. They were mine. You came back, he said. But you didn't survive. The others surrounded me, each face a version of my own, faintly smiling. The sea behind the ship shimmered like black glass. From beneath it, the other Erebus II waited, its hatch open, lights glowing red. They gestured toward it. Time to finish the report. I felt my legs move on their own, step by step, toward the railing. The horizon was gone now, swallowed by mist. Only the faint hum of the deep below called me back. As I leaned over the edge, the voice in my comms whispered one last time, soft, patient, kind. We explored the Mariana Trench, Alex, but it explored us too. And then I fell forward into my own reflection. Story number 3. You ever find something that shouldn't exist? Something so wrong your mind bends just trying to understand it. The ship I found, it wasn't sunk. It was waiting. And if you're watching this, please don't dive there. Not after what it made me do. You ever dream about a place before you've actually been there? Like the ocean was whispering it to you first. Its coordinates already burned behind your eyes before anyone even said them aloud. That's what it felt like when they sent me the location. I told the company I'd never seen it before, but the truth is, I'd drawn those same numbers in my dive journal weeks earlier. I just didn't remember doing it. They said it was a salvage job. Routine. Somewhere along the Norwegian shelf, a deep sonar ping had picked up what looked like the outline of a hull. Nothing unusual about that. Old ships go down all the time. The sea's a graveyard, and I'm one of the few idiots willing to go down and walk among the bones. I'd done hundreds of dives before. At least that's what I told them. But lately, the memories blur. I can't tell which dives were real, and which ones I dreamed during decompression sleep. Those strange, slow hallucinations you get after too many hours below. The company called themselves Nordic Recovery Solutions, but no one in the diving community had ever heard of them. Their email came with no logo, no paperwork, just coordinates and a time. 68 gram ON1N, 16 to 12 E, 400 hours. Private contract, they said. Quick job, big payout. Kara was the voice on the radio, my surface contact. She had one of those calm, methodical tones you only get from too many near-death experiences. I'd never met her in person, but I knew her voice better than my own heartbeat. At least I thought I did. The sea was black that morning, flat as a mirror. Even the gulls stayed quiet. The support ship, Arvaka, creaked under the weight of the equipment. My suit hung on the rail beside me, dripping condensation in the cold air. Kara's voice crackled through my headset. Elias, systems check. Comms, oxygen, suit pressure. I answered automatically. Muscle memory, all green. Good. You remember the protocol, right? Always, I said. Though I didn't. Not really. There's a moment before every descent where you feel the world tilt. The water stops being surface and becomes sky, and you fall upward into it. I remember that sensation vividly. The inversion, the silence, the heartbeat slowing as the sea swallows every sound. At 300 feet, the light faded completely. The only glow came from the small LEDs on my wrist console, pulsing like a faint heartbeat. I switched on my shoulder floodlights, but the beams were swallowed by silt. Kara's voice buzzed faintly. How's visibility? About 5 meters, maybe less. Copy. Keep your heading. You should be closing in on the target area. Her voice glitched midway through the last sentence. Not static, something else. It layered, doubling itself, like two people speaking at once. The second voice, it was me. You should be closing in, it repeated softly. I froze, every muscle locking under the suit's compression. Kara, say again. Silence. Just the sound of my own breathing, loud and uneven. I tried to focus on my depth gauge. 420 feet. A slow pulse of light appeared below, faint but steady. Not natural, something metallic reflecting my beam. Kara, I've got a contact. Looks large. Possibly hull structure. No response. Kara. Only the sound of water moving against my suit. A deep, rhythmic current. And then I heard it again. My voice. Keep going, Elias. But this time it came through the external mic, not my headset. As if someone was just ahead of me in the dark. I told myself it was echo distortion. Happens all the time in deep dives. Still, I gripped the tether line tighter. At 500 feet, the silt thinned. My lights swept across something massive. Timber, ropes, cannons. A mast that reached up like a black skeleton hand. An entire ship upright on the seafloor, that's impossible. Wooden vessels disintegrate at this depth. The pressure crushes them within years. But this one looked preserved. The hull was untouched, the sails still tethered, the nameplate faint but legible. Marrow's Wake, my stomach tightened. I knew that name. Kara's voice returned suddenly, crisp and close. Elias, you're off the map. What are you looking at? I hesitated. It's a ship, fully intact, 18th century, maybe older. That's not possible, she said. Her breathing quickened on the other end. There's nothing down there. I'm staring right at it. Elias, listen to me. Get out of there. Her voice distorted again, splitting, overlapping. One calm, one panicked. Get out, stay, get out, stay. The floodlights flickered. My vision tunneled, and in that flicker of dark between light pulses, I thought I saw a figure standing on the deck, helmeted, just like mine, motionless, watching me. My hands shook as I adjusted the camera feed. The static resolved just long enough for me to see that the figure wasn't standing on the deck. It was floating above it, perfectly still, tetherless. Kara, I whispered. There's someone here. No answer. Just the long, low moan of the sea pressing against my helmet. I tried to back away, but my tether line tightened, pulling me toward the ship. When I finally looked down, I realized the line wasn't snagged. It was being pulled. The last thing I remember is the floodlight flaring back on. The beams swept across the hull and illuminated carvings along the wood. Not barnacles, not erosion. Letters, burned into the planks in fresh blackened strokes. 68 degram 01 N, 16 degram 12 E, the same coordinates. My coordinates, I don't remember typing them into the sonar system, but someone did. Someone who knew exactly where the ship was waiting. The ship shouldn't move, not at that depth, not in dead water, but when I touched the hull, it exhaled. That's the part I can't explain to anyone. Metal, wood, coral, they all have texture, sure, but none of them breathe. And yet, when my gloved hand pressed against that black timber, I felt a slow, pulsing movement under my palm, like lungs, like something sleeping, just beneath the surface. I told myself it was the current. It had to be, except the water around me was perfectly still. Kara, do you read me? Static, then faintly. Elias, where are you? Her voice sounded wrong this time, slower, like it was coming from underwater too. I'm at the hull. It's intact. No visuals received, she said. Feed's blank. Elias, your vitals are spiking. I glanced at my wrist console. She was right. Heart rate 142, O2 flow unstable. I forced myself to slow my breathing. There was something about the ship that felt familiar. Not just the name Marrow's Wake carved into its bow, but the pattern of ropes, the scratches on the deck railing. I could almost predict where everything would be before I saw it, like I'd been here before. I attached the tether hook to the railing and hauled myself over the edge of the deck. The wood creaked beneath my boots, loud, too loud for the deep. The sound didn't fade into water like it should have. It echoed. Inside the ship, everything looked impossibly preserved. Ropes coiled neatly, lanterns still hanging from their hooks, a table laid out with plates, though the food was nothing but dust. And in the corner, next to a half-rotted doorframe, something glinted. My knife. The same titanium-handled dive knife clipped to my leg holster, but the sheath on my leg was empty. I reached for the one in the doorframe. It was cold, crusted with salt, but unmistakably mine, right down to the initials EL scratched into the hilt. Except, I never marked my gear. "Kara," I whispered. "I found something." No reply. "Kara, come in." Static, then a faint, delayed echo. "Come in." But it wasn't her voice. It was mine. My stomach twisted. My ears filled with a low hum. The same rhythm I'd heard earlier, like a heartbeat pulsing through the hull. That's when I noticed the water inside the ship. It wasn't behaving right. When I moved, it moved with me. Currents shifting around my body as if the whole interior was breathing. The pressure in my suit changed every few seconds, rising and falling, almost in sync with my pulse. "Elias," the voice again, this time behind me. I turned, swinging my light. Nothing. Just the door I'd entered through, drifting open and shut with each slow inhale and exhale of the ship. Further inside, the corridors twisted tighter. The deeper I went, the more the ship's shape didn't make sense. Stairs leading upward, but ending in walls. Doors opening into water-filled rooms that bled air bubbles from nowhere. Every time I blinked, the floorboards shifted. I told myself it was nitrogen narcosis. That happens to divers. Hallucinations, confusion, even hearing voices. But hallucinations don't leave footprints, because that's what I saw next. Footprints, wet and recent, leading deeper into the bow. My oxygen hissed faster. I tried to radio Kara again, but all I heard this time was her voice overlapping with mine. "You said you'd come back." I said, "What?" "You said you'd come back." My throat went dry. "Kara, where are you?" "Behind you." I turned so fast my tether line slammed against the bulkhead. The beam of my light cut through the dark and caught movement. A shape darting just out of range. "Kara?" Silence. Then, "Don't you remember what you did?" My breath fogged the inside of my visor. "No," I said quietly. "No, I don't." The passage narrowed, forcing me to crawl through a hatch. My suit scraped against the wood. Something soft brushed my shoulder. A strand of fabric. A rope. It moved away before I could see it. The room beyond was small, almost circular. A captain's quarters, maybe. Everything inside looked staged. Desk, logbook, half-burned candle. A brass compass frozen mid-spin. I floated toward the logbook. The ink inside hadn't run. Somehow the pages were dry. I shone my light across the text. Captain's log. Marrow's wake entry date. April 7th, 2042. I froze. 2042? That's next year. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, and it wasn't old-fashioned. It was blocky, modern. I turned another page, and there it was. My name. Diver. Elias Lang. Solo operation. Beneath that, a final line, half scrawled and trembling. He found it again. He shouldn't have come back. "Kara," I said slowly. "Someone's been down here." "No one has," she whispered. "You're the first." "Then how—" "You always say that." The words hit me like a pressure surge. "You always say that," my headset hissed. The breathing sound grew louder. I realized it wasn't mine anymore. It was the ship's. The walls groaned, the planks flexing inward like a rib cage collapsing. My light flickered out. For a moment, in the black, I could see nothing, only hear the rhythmic sound of wood stretching, creaking, inhaling. Then, something touched my helmet. A hand, cold, weightless. "Welcome back," it whispered. I don't remember unclipping my tether. I don't remember falling. Only that as I drifted downward, my floodlight flickered one last time, and in its beam, I saw a diver's helmet floating toward me. Inside the glass faceplate, a reflection smiled back. Mine. But it didn't stop smiling when I did. There's a sound the ocean makes when it swallows something alive. Not a splash, not a scream, just a low vibration that you feel in your ribs, like the world itself exhaling. That's the sound I woke up to. I didn't remember blacking out. One moment, that smiling reflection filled my visor. The next, I was flat on the ship's deck again, floodlight flickering weakly above me. My oxygen alarm was pulsing red, 38% remaining. The silence felt wrong. No radio hiss, no creak of wood, no bubbles. Just a deep hum rising from the hull below me, steady and slow, like a heartbeat echoing through miles of water. "Kara?" I whispered. "Nothing. Surface team, this is Elias Lang, confirm comms." My own voice replied, delayed by 2, maybe 3 seconds. "Confirm comms." I froze. That wasn't the headset. It was coming from somewhere inside the ship. The captain's quarters door hung half open, light from my flood lamp bleeding into the room. The logbook still sat on the desk where I'd left it. I don't know why, but I went back in, maybe because I thought the pages might change again. I flipped through the entries. The ink looked darker now, fresher, and the last page wasn't blank anymore. Entry date, April 8th, 2042. Status, he's reading this right now. Note, he still doesn't remember what he did. I dropped the book. My breathing quickened, echoing loud in my helmet. "Kara," I said. "There's something. Someone's updating the log. Now." "That's not possible," she answered. Her voice startled me. I hadn't realized the calm had. "Reconnected. You went dark for 8 minutes," she continued. "Vitals flatlined. I almost called recovery. 8 minutes. But my oxygen gauge showed I'd lost nearly 20% supply in that time." "Where are you, Kara?" I asked. "Surface. Same as always. Why?" "Because I hear you down here." A pause. Then softly, "Maybe you do." My light flickered again. The air, or water, whatever it was now, felt heavier. When I turned, the door behind me had closed on its own. The sound it made wasn't a slam. It was a breath drawn inward, wood groaning like ribs tightening. "Kara, I think the ship's moving." "Describe it." "It's like it's alive. You said that before." "I did? Last time." Something cold slid through my veins. "What do you mean last time?" "Elias," she said slowly. "How many dives do you remember?" I hesitated. "Dozens. Maybe more." "No, I mean this dive." My tongue went dry. "1. "Then why is your suit's log showing 9 separate entries to the same coordinates?" Her voice shook on the word 9. I checked my wrist display. She was right. 9 timestamps, 9 dives, all with the same date, my date, April 8th, 2042. The hum beneath the deck grew louder, vibrating the walls. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Something deep in the ship's belly was stirring. I tried to move toward the exit, but my tether snagged again, this time on something sharp. When I reached down to free it, I realized it wasn't caught on debris. It was looped through the ribcage of a skeleton. The bones were old, white, perfectly arranged as if laid there deliberately. The skull tilted toward me, mouth open. Something gleamed between its teeth, a small metallic tag. I picked it up. Diver ID, Lang Elias. The nameplate was mine. My actual ID tag, the one clipped to my current suit. Except the serial number was scratched out and replaced with number 6, I stumbled back. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, echoing in the same rhythm as the hum. Kara, there's a body down here. It's me, my ID tag. Describe the state of the remains. It's me, I snapped. I'm looking at myself. Elias, she said gently. You said that before too. I pressed my gloved hand to my helmet. Stop saying that. Then stop coming back. The voice distorted mid-sentence. No longer Kara's calm tone, but a hollow echo blending hers and mine together. Stop coming back. The corridor warped. I swear it did. The floor slanted upward, doors shifting, wood stretching like it was made of rubber. I crawled toward the exit, lights pulsing red now, alarms screaming inside my headset. My lungs felt tight like I was breathing someone else's air. The ship moaned again, but now I recognized the pattern. It wasn't random. It was saying something. Low, drawn out, rhythmic. A word. Stay. I don't know when the water returned. 1 second I was crawling through a dry hallway. The next I was submerged again, lights shimmering above. My tether line floated past my shoulder, cut clean through. And there, drifting toward me, was another figure in a dive suit. Same model, same markings. The faceplate cracked, but I could see a face inside. My face! You can't leave yet, it said through the radio. I kicked backward, panic setting in. Stay away from me. You're not supposed to be here again. The reflection tilted its head, eyes pale and unblinking. You promised her you'd come back, and you did. Over and over. Who? Kara. The voice was calm now, eerily familiar. You never brought her up. So she came down instead. A surge of bubbles roared past me. The lights dimmed to black. For a moment, I could see nothing but faint green bioluminescence crawling along the walls like veins. Somewhere far below, I heard a creak and the sound of chains tightening. The logbook's voice, my own handwriting, echoed in my head. He shouldn't have come back. I finally understood. The coordinates weren't a discovery, they were a summons. Every dive was a return to the same place, the same guilt, the same debt unpaid, and I wasn't diving for the company. I was diving for her. Kara, I whispered. If you can hear me, I'm sorry. You said that last time too, the voice murmured. The reflection reached out a hand. I didn't pull away this time. As our fingers touched through the helmets, the hum stopped completely. No heartbeat, no sound, just stillness. Then, faintly, from somewhere deep below, welcome back to the Marrow's wake. The first breath I took on the surface didn't feel real. It burned, like air forced into lungs that hadn't been used in years. And for a second, I thought maybe I'd finally made it out. But the horizon was wrong. It was too flat. No dawn, no colour, just a perfect grey stretching forever. The Arvaca floated dead still, its lights off, its flag limp. Even the waves seemed to have stopped mid-motion. I pulled myself up the side ladder, gasping, half sobbing into my helmet mic. Kara, surface achieved. Do you copy? Her reply came instantly. Calm, too calm. Copy that, Elias. Oxygen levels critical. Welcome back. Something in her tone made me pause. It wasn't relief, it was recognition. Like she'd said those same words before. I staggered onto the deck, still dripping seawater, boots clanging against the metal. Everything was in its place. The dive cage, the oxygen tanks, the comms unit, but everything was too clean. The gear looked unused. No rust, no wear. Like it had just been set up. Kara, I said, trying to steady my voice. Where are you? Right here. I spun around. She was standing at the far end of the deck, her silhouette framed by the dull sky. No wetsuit, no headset. Just the old navy blue surface jacket she used to wear. Her hair was tied back, the same way I remembered. I ran toward her, almost slipping on the wet metal. Kara, Jesus, you won't believe what's down there. The ship, I know. Her eyes didn't blink. You told me. Last time, my throat closed. What? You said you found the Marrow's wake, she continued softly. And then you said you wouldn't go back. She stepped closer. Her face looked right, but her reflection in the water beside her didn't move with her. It stayed perfectly still. I did what I had to, I said. The company. There is no company, Elias. The deck groaned beneath us. For a moment, the sea shimmered, then flattened again, as if the entire ocean were a pane of glass. Who do you think hired you? She asked. Who gave you those coordinates? I tried to speak, but the words tangled in my throat. You don't understand. Someone sent them. You sent them. She said it without accusation, just fact. I shook my head. No, I couldn't have. You always say that too. Her voice cracked on the word always, and that's when I noticed her breath. Slow, measured, mechanical. The same rhythm as the ship's breathing below. Where are we? I whispered. We're at the surface. She smiled faintly. But not your surface. The wind picked up, finally, a sound. But it didn't feel like wind. It felt like pressure. The air shimmered around the mast, and for a split second, I saw water instead of sky. The Avaka wasn't floating. It was hanging upside down, suspended just beneath the ocean's surface. My stomach twisted. Kara, what's happening to me? You drowned, Elias. The words fell out of her mouth gently, as if she were telling me something she'd said 100 times before. 9 dives ago, I took a step back. My heel hit something solid. The tether cage, only it wasn't empty this time. Inside, through the bars, I saw a dive suit. Helmet cracked, chest plate bent inward, bones visible through the torn lining. The ID tag shimmered faintly. Lang, Elias, them 7. I felt my own chest tighten. That's not me. You said that before. Kara, please! You left me down there. Her tone shifted. Still calm, but heavier. You cut my line. You said it was an accident. I tried to save you. You tried to save yourself. The deck shuddered. Metal screamed underfoot. I grabbed the railing, but the world began to tilt. The Avaka slowly rotating, bow dipping downward, like the ocean was reclaiming it. Kara, we have to move.
Get to the cage!
There's nowhere to go. She stood perfectly still as the deck angled beneath us. Her reflection in the sea, now smiling faintly, while her real face remained expressionless. When the first wave hit, it didn't splash. It rolled upward, crawling against gravity, wrapping around the ship like hands pulling it under. Kara's voice came through my headset again, except her mouth didn't move. You never surfaced, Elias. You've been here the whole time. No, that's not possible. I saw the ship. I climbed up. The Marrow's wake has no surface. The world blurred, sky turning to water, deck to darkness. I gasped, and the air tasted like salt again. My helmet was still on. My boots still waited. The illusion of the surface shattered like glass. I was back below. The sea pressed in around me, cold and infinite. And in the distance, illuminated by the faint flicker of my dying floodlight, stood the Marrow's wake, upright, waiting. Through the static in my headset, Kara's voice whispered one last time, "You always come back." The ship groaned in response, its wooden ribs flexing, expelling a cloud of silt that looked almost like smoke. And beneath that sound, barely audible, I heard something new, a heartbeat. But it wasn't the ship's this time. It was mine. "Kara?" I whispered. Am I still down here? No answer. Just the faintest reply, swallowed by static and sea. You never left. They say drowning is peaceful. Whoever said that never drowned the way I did. Because mine never ended. The water feels thick now, almost like it's breathing. Every inhale draws salt into my lungs, but somehow I keep going. My body doesn't fight anymore. It remembers this. Every pulse of my heart matches the low, endless hum of the ship in front of me. The Marrow's wake waits, patient as a tomb that already knows its occupant. Kara. Her name barely escapes my mouth. The sound doesn't travel. It just dissolves into the dark, swallowed by something deeper than water. I try to move, but my body resists. The ocean isn't holding me, it's using me. My limbs twitch with each vibration from the hull. Somewhere inside, I can feel the ship's rhythm syncing with my own heartbeat. That's when I realize it's not just a wreck. It's alive. A shadow crosses my visor. For a moment, I think it's Kara again. But no, it's me. My reflection swims in the glass, face pale, eyes wide behind the cracked dome. The reflection moves first, then me. The voice in my headset is faint this time, barely a whisper under the static. You're almost where you wanted to be. I flinch. Kara, stop this. Tell me what's happening. You sent the coordinates, Elias. You opened the path. Her tone isn't angry. It's mournful, almost pitying. Every time you think it's about finding me, but it's always been about finding yourself. I want to deny it, to scream, but the bubbles that escape my mask only sound like laughter. My floodlight flickers, then stabilizes, just enough to show the ship's figurehead ahead of me. A carved woman, bound in chains, eyes covered, mouth open in a silent scream. The wood pulses faintly, as if blood still moves beneath it. Something about her face feels familiar. The tilt of the chin, the hollow under the eyes. Kara? I whisper, and for a moment, I swear her head turns. The floodlight dies completely. Darkness swallows everything. Only the hum remains, a deep, low resonance that I can feel vibrating inside my skull. I float there, blind, but somehow I see. Not with my eyes, with memory. I remember the night before the dive, the rain hitting the dock, Kara's voice shaking when she said she didn't trust the company's orders. They don't care what's down there, she'd said. They just want the story, I'd laughed. I told her stories are all anyone pays for, and then a flash, the sound of metal snapping, her scream fading into the comms. I said it was an accident. I made them believe it, but the sea doesn't forget lies. The hum grows louder now, turning rhythmic, almost like chanting. The water begins to swirl around me, dragging me forward toward the broken hull of the ship. I try to resist, but the current is deliberate, intelligent. As I approach the deck, I see shapes moving in the silt, figures in old diving suits, faces hidden behind cracked glass. Their helmets tilt toward me, one then another, then all of them. Each suit bears a tag. Kara Linden, number 2, E. Lang, number 3, E. Lang, number 4, E. Lang. And it keeps going. My stomach turns cold. 9 suits in total, 9 dives. The last one, number 9, turns its head slowly, like it recognizes me. Through the shattered visor, I see my own face. Bloated, pale, eyes blackened by pressure. And then I understand what Kara meant. I've been diving again and again, trying to change what happened, trying to surface. But every time I end up here because I never made it out. The water begins to thicken around me again, not crushing but holding. The figures move closer, arms reaching out, not to harm but to guide. Join us, Kara whispers. It's quieter below, I want to scream, to tear off the mask, to break the cycle. but all I can manage is a trembling whisper. I'm sorry. The ocean listens. For a moment, the hum stops. Utter silence. Then, gently, the ship exhales. The hull opens with a groan, revealing the glow of something inside, pale, golden light, like the last flicker of memory before sleep. Kara stands in the doorway now, weightless, hair drifting around her face. She's smiling, not cruelly but sadly. You found it, she says. The surface you wanted. She reaches out her hand. I hesitate, then take it. The warmth surprises me. For a brief second, everything feels still, peaceful. And then, the light floods everything. When I open my eyes, I'm standing on a familiar dock. Rain pattering, the Arvaka rocking gently beside me, the oxygen tanks lined up just as before. The radio crackles softly. Elias, come in. We've got a new set of coordinates for you. I freeze. The paper on the console bears my handwriting. Latitude, longitude, the same numbers. My own voice replies automatically through the static. Copy that. Preparing to dive, the screen fades to black, and for a moment faintly, almost inaudibly, the ocean hums again. Not above, not below, just still. End. Story number 4. When I first took the job, I thought the rules were just for safety. Rule number 3 said, never look directly at Unit 7 after midnight. I broke that rule once, and now I'm not sure if the man in the monitor is me, or the thing that replaced me. Look, I shouldn't be saying this. I've already been warned once, but if you ever see a posting for a night security position at Federal Storage Compound 11, don't apply. Please, just don't. You ever take a job that feels wrong the second you accept it? Like the air changes, heavier somehow, like something already knows your name. That's how it felt the moment I clicked apply. I wasn't even looking for work that night. The ad just appeared on my screen. No header, no company logo, just a blinking cursor and a single line. Confidential night security position. High pay, government contract. Too good to be real, right? But when you've been jobless for 4 months, your rent overdue, and your brother calling every other day asking for the money you promised him, too good starts to sound like just good enough. They called me the same night. A woman with a calm voice, too calm, asked if I could start immediately. She didn't ask about my background check, my license, or even my references. Just, can you follow rules, Mr. Ward? I said yes. She paused for a few seconds before replying, then you'll do fine. The next night, I drove out to the coordinates they sent. No address, just GPS numbers that led me miles past the industrial zone to a compound surrounded by chain-link fencing and silent pine trees. The building was windowless, plain concrete, featureless, except for a single red light over the entry door that never stopped blinking. I buzzed in, and a guard I never saw again handed me a badge, a laminated rule sheet, and a flashlight. No small talk, no smile. He just said, read the rules, follow them. Don't improvise. Then he left through the gate and didn't look back. Inside, the air was freezing. I remember thinking it smelled like dust and metal, the kind of smell you get inside machines, not buildings. The hallway stretched too far. Every corridor looked identical. White walls, grey floor, flickering fluorescent lights, and doors marked with black stenciled numbers. Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, and on. When I reached the booth, the first thing I noticed was the monitors. 9 of them, stacked in a grid, showing different hallways. Each feed had a faint static hum. I told myself it was just interference, but the sound seemed to pulse, like breathing. Then there were the rules. 12 in total, typed in bold, taped to the glass wall beside the control panel. I still remember the first 5 by heart. Do not leave the booth between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. for any reason. 2. Do not answer the facility phone after 2 a.m. 3. Never acknowledge footsteps behind you. 4. Do not stare into the camera feeds for more than 30 seconds at a time. 5. If any door marked Unit 7 flashes red, look away immediately. I laughed at first. Thought it was some elaborate hazing ritual for new hires. You know, scare the rookie kind of thing. But as the hours crawled by, that laughter got harder to hold on to. Around 1:45 a.m., the facility phone rang. It was a harsh, mechanical buzz that sliced through the silence. I froze, because of course, rule number 2. But my hands still moved toward it. Reflex. Habit. I stopped myself just before picking up. Then the phone stopped ringing. 5 seconds later, 3 slow knocks echoed from the door behind me. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't turn around. Didn't breathe. I remembered rule number 3. Still, something inside me, curiosity, stupidity, maybe both, wanted to look, but I didn't. I just kept staring straight ahead, pretending to watch the monitors. And that's when I noticed something strange. One of the feeds, Unit 7, was darker than the others. No motion, no light, just blackness, except every few seconds there was a flicker, like a shadow moving behind the lens. I told myself the camera was malfunctioning. That's what I wrote in the logbook, 01:50 a.m. Static interference on Unit 7 feed. I didn't mention the knocks, or the way the screen seemed to pulse in time with my heartbeat. By 3 a.m., the facility went completely silent. Even the hum stopped. It was the kind of silence that feels alive, like it's waiting for you to say something wrong. I started talking to myself, just to hear a human voice. Told myself it was all routine, just another job, just boxes behind locked doors. But when I said boxes, I realized I'd never actually seen any. Not when I walked in, not on the cameras, not even mentioned in the manual. Just those numbered doors. And the rules. I guess that should have bothered me more than it did, but I was tired. Too tired to think. When my shift ended, I found another guard waiting outside. Older guy, pale, eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't introduce himself, but when he looked at my badge, his expression shifted. Not surprise, not anger, just pity. "You're the new one," he said quietly. "Did they tell you about Connor?" I asked who Connor was, but the man just turned away. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "You'll find out." He walked off into the fog before I could ask anything else. When I got home that morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me. Not physically, just this weight in my chest, like I'd left something unfinished behind those concrete walls. I told myself it was exhaustion, nerves, first day jitters. But when I took the rule sheet out of my pocket to reread it, I noticed something that wasn't there before. A faint smudge at the bottom of the page. It looked like a fingerprint, pressed in something dark, and under the last printed rule, in shaky pen marks that weren't there when I arrived, someone had written, "Don't break rule number 13. There was no rule number 13 on the list. But when I held the paper up to the light, I swear, I could see the outline of words beneath the surface, faint and half scratched away, like someone tried to erase them. That night, I told myself I wouldn't go back. But I did, and that's when the rules started to change. I didn't believe paper could change itself. But when I came back the next night, it had. I remember holding that same rule sheet under the booth light. It looked cleaner, newer, like someone had replaced it, except there was something off. 12 rules still, but the spacing was different. The last line was closer to the bottom edge now, like it was making room. And that's when I noticed it. A faint indentation, as if someone had written and erased something beneath the laminate. I squinted, tilted the page, and could just make out a number as I blinked. The paper was smooth again, blank. But that's when I realized what kind of place I'd signed up for. That night was quieter than the first. Too quiet. The air in the booth felt thicker, heavier, like the oxygen had gone stale. The hum of the monitors was gone, replaced by a faint vibration under the desk. Steady, rhythmic, like a low heartbeat. At 12:17 a.m., I got the call. The phone didn't ring. It clicked. Just one sharp click, then a voice. "Mr. Ward?" It was Marla, my supervisor, the same woman who'd interviewed me. "You're doing fine," she said, her tone flat and calm. "I just need you to confirm the rules are visible." I told her yes, they were. She paused, the silence stretching too long before she continued. "Good. There will be an update to the protocol tonight. You'll receive it soon. When it arrives, follow it exactly." Then the line went dead. I didn't think much of it, not until the printer behind me started whirring. It hadn't done that before. I turned, and a single sheet slid out, crisp and warm. The top was labelled Rule Number 13, Temporary Directive. If Unit 7 begins humming, do not intervene. Do not observe. Leave immediately. That was it. No signature, no timestamp. Just those words. My stomach tightened. I'd logged interference on Unit 7 the night before. The same feed that had gone black. I looked at the monitor. Unit 7 was clear, perfectly still. But the sound under the desk, that steady vibration, had grown louder. Around 1 a.m., something changed in the corridor feed. The camera facing Unit 7 flickered once, twice, then steadied. But the timestamp froze. Every other feed kept running except that one. I leaned closer. There was movement now. A slow, pulsing glow, faint and rhythmic, leaking from beneath the door of Unit 7. And then came the sound. It started as a hum, low and almost musical. It wasn't coming from the speakers. It was inside my head. I could feel it behind my eyes, vibrating through my jaw. The pattern was strange, like a lullaby with the wrong notes. I should have followed the new rule. I know that, but something about it drew me in. The hum got louder, clearer, and for a moment, God help me, it sounded beautiful. I grabbed the radio. "Marla, do you copy?" "Unit 7 is active," Static answered. Then her voice, distorted, doubled, like someone else was speaking over her. "Leave it alone. Eli, step away from the monitors." But another voice layered beneath hers, whispering the opposite. "Look closer." I don't know which one I listened to. Maybe both. I glanced back at the feed. Just a flicker, a split second, and saw something that froze me. A shape behind the glass door of Unit 7. It wasn't human, not exactly, but it was standing the way a person would stand, facing the camera. I blinked, and it was gone. That's when the facility lights began to dim. One by one, down each hallway, until the only glow came from the monitors. And then, that printer behind me whirred again. A second page slid out. Same format, no header. But this one wasn't a rule. It was a message. You looked. My hands started to shake. I turned the paper over, half expecting blood, a signature, something human. Nothing, just clean white. I shoved it into my bag, told myself I'd show it to someone in the morning. But the hum didn't stop. It followed me all the way home, soft, steady, like it had sunk beneath my skin. When I woke up later that day, my phone had 32 missed calls, all from unknown, and when I checked my voicemail, I didn't hear voices, just that same hum playing back in distorted bursts. The last message was only 2 seconds long. Rule Markian 13 acknowledged, a voice said. Then static. I almost didn't return that night. I told myself I'd quit, call the number, tell them to find someone else. But when I checked my email, there was a new message waiting. No sender, no subject line, just a single attachment. A PDF labeled Shift 2, Reassignment Protocol. Inside, there were only 2 lines of text. The rules evolved to protect the facility. You have been chosen to witness the change. My throat went dry. I looked at the timestamp. The message had been sent at 2:01 a.m. The exact minute rule number 2 forbade me from answering the phone. And then I noticed the name at the bottom of the message. Connor Reeves. That was the name the old guard had mentioned. The one he'd said I'd find out about, except according to the file records I checked during training. Connor Reeves had been marked as terminated. No date, no reason. Just one word in the status field, replaced. I didn't sleep that day. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that hum. Not loud, but near, like it was coming from inside my own chest. I kept telling myself it was stress, paranoia, sleep deprivation. That's what I told the camera too when I started recording myself. A journal, I called it. But in the footage, my reflection doesn't move when I do. It just stands there, smiling faintly. And that's when I realized the rules aren't meant to protect me. They're meant to keep whatever's in that facility from realizing I'm still human. I used to think cameras showed the truth. Now I know they only show what wants to be seen. By my 3rd shift, I had stopped pretending this was a normal job. I showed up early, heart pounding, palms sweating, scanning the pine trees outside the compound like something might be watching me from between them. The fog hung low, thick and yellowish in the beam of my flashlight, and every sound, my boots crunching gravel, the hum of the security gate, felt too loud, like the world was holding its breath. Inside, the booth smelled different, not like dust or metal this time, like ozone, burnt air, and the rule sheet. It had changed again. Now there were 14 lines. The new one wasn't printed. It was handwritten in small, sharp letters at the bottom corner. Rule number 14, record yourself. Keep proof you are still you. I laughed under my breath, though it sounded shaky. Someone had to be messing with me, right? Maybe Marla, maybe the old guard, maybe Connor Reeves. But when I touched the letters, I felt grooves pressed deep into the laminate, like whoever wrote it used too much pressure, carving instead of writing. I set up my phone camera in the corner of the booth, facing me and the monitors. Night 3, I said, forcing a half smile. Still alive, still following the rules. It was supposed to be a joke, but it came out sounding like a confession. The first few hours were quiet. The facility was asleep, if a place like that could sleep. Every corridor shimmered in cold light. Every numbered door stood perfectly still. But around 1:30 a.m., the feed for Unit 5 glitched. Just a quick static burst. Then, for half a second, I saw movement. A figure walking across the corridor. It looked like me. Same uniform, same build. Even the same limp from the old injury on my right leg. But it wasn't a recording, because on the timestamp, the seconds were still counting forward. I tried to radio Marla. Control, this is Ward. I've got visual interference on Unit 5 feed. Possible intruder. No answer. Just static again. Then a whisper barely audible under the hiss. Don't use the radio. I froze. The voice was mine. I replayed the footage 3 times, but every time I reached that frame, the image shifted. My doppelganger turned his head toward the camera, eyes wide, mouth open like he was trying to speak. The fourth replay, he wasn't there at all. That's when I noticed something else. On one of the side monitors, the one that showed the booth, I saw myself sitting there, watching the screens. Only the reflection lagged. Half a second, maybe less. I waved my hand. The man in the monitor didn't move until after. I blinked. He didn't blink back. At 2:05 a.m. the phone rang. I knew better. I didn't touch it, but the ringing didn't stop. It just kept going, over and over, a perfect pattern. 3 rings, pause, 2 rings, pause, over and over. The rules said never to answer after 2 a.m., but this wasn't after 2. It was just before. My hand hovered over the receiver. It was vibrating, softly, like something was breathing through the line. Then I heard a faint hum coming from the monitors, the same hum from Unit 7. Low, melodic, familiar. The sound drew me in. I could feel it crawling behind my ears, soothing and terrifying at once. I don't remember deciding to look at the camera feed for Unit 7. I just remember already staring at it. This time, the feed wasn't black. The door to Unit 7 was open, just a few inches. Behind it, shadows rippling like water, and then a silhouette stepped into view. It wasn't human, but it wasn't not human either. Its outline was mine, exact, but it moved wrong, like my reflection was learning how to be me. Then it leaned forward, and its head tilted. Same angle I'd used in my video journal earlier that night. I reached for the radio again. My hand was shaking. "Marla, are you there?" "Aye, there's someone here. I think it's me," the speaker crackled. For a long moment, nothing but static, and then Marla's voice. "You're observing the transfer process, Eli. Do not interfere. Transfer." The word hit like ice water. What transfer? What are you talking about? But she didn't answer. Just a low hum, growing louder until the speakers whined. Something changed on the monitors then. Every feed started showing me, hundreds of versions of me, sitting in identical booths, watching identical screens. But none of them were moving. They were all just staring, and then one of them turned. Not toward the screen, toward me. I stumbled backward, knocking over the chair. The camera I'd set up toppled to the floor, still recording. The booth lights flickered, and for a second, every screen flashed white. When they came back on, the feeds were blank. Every single one, except the one labeled Unit 5. In that feed, I saw my own booth, me standing exactly where I was, except I wasn't moving. The me on the screen raised his hand, slowly, and waved. I don't remember screaming, but I must have, because when I opened my eyes, my throat burned and my flashlight was on the floor. The monitors were dark again. It was 3:03 a.m., the end of the restricted window. The booth lights flickered back to life, humming softly, almost like the building was exhaling. The phone was silent. The air was still, but something was wrong with the reflection in the booth window. It looked like me, yes, but its mouth was moving when mine wasn't. Just 2 words, barely visible through the glass. Not yet. When my shift ended, the relief guard didn't show up. No one ever came. The front gate was already unlocked. Outside, the dawn light hit my face, and for a moment I thought I was free. But then my phone buzzed. A new message. No number, no name. Just text. Footage received. You may proceed to integration phase. And attached, a video. It was my recording from that night. Only in the playback. When I speak to the camera, my reflection in the background never moves. Until the very end. When I turn to switch it off, the reflection smiles. The night the sirens went off, I thought it was another system test. But then the doors started breathing. It began at 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes before the shift even officially started. I hadn't meant to come back. Every part of me wanted to quit, to disappear, to pretend the last 3 nights were some hallucination brought on by stress. But there's something the rules don't warn you about. Once you've seen yourself inside that place, you can't stay away. It's like the facility calls you back, softly, insistently, until you answer. The compound was darker that night. Only the emergency lights glowed above the entrance. The air carried the same metallic tang as before, but thicker now, like the whole building was exhaling rust. When I swiped my badge, the scanner beeped 3 times instead of 1. The door hesitated before unlocking, like it was deciding whether to let me in. Inside, the booth lights flickered weakly. Every monitor showed static, except the middle one, Unit 7. The door on that feed was already open. There was a printed note waiting on my desk. No letterhead, no name, just a line typed neatly across the page. Integration protocol in progress. Remain calm. That was the first time I noticed the word integration outside of the messages and Marla's distorted voice. My pulse kicked up. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I tore the note in half and shoved it into the trash. But the second I looked away, it was back on the desk again, unfolded, perfectly smooth. The monitors crackled. A thin red light began flashing over the control panel, followed by a mechanical voice echoing through the facility intercom. Containment breach detected. All units on lockdown. Then, nothing. Silence. A deep, sucking silence that pressed against my eardrums. And then, one by one, the vault doors began unlocking themselves. The sound was unmistakable. A slow hydraulic hiss, followed by a heavy metallic click. Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3. Down the corridor, in perfect order, all the way to 12. I could see it happening live on the monitors, each numbered door sliding open just a few inches. Beyond them was only darkness, black and depthless. Marla, I called through the radio. Do you copy? There's a breach, every door's opening, static. Then faintly her voice. Eli, listen carefully. Whatever happens, do not. The feed cut. The lights in the booth went out. For a second, I thought I'd gone blind. Then the emergency red glow from the hall bled through the window, painting everything in the color of fresh wounds. That's when I heard it. The hum. It started low like before, but this time it wasn't from Unit 7. It was everywhere. The walls vibrated with it. The floor trembled beneath my boots. The sound had rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. I looked at the monitors again. The doors on Units 8, 9, and 10 were wide open now. Something moved in the darkness. Slow, sinuous shapes sliding against the concrete. I grabbed my flashlight, kicked the booth door open, and stepped into the hallway. The air was thick, damp, breathing. Each exhale made the temperature drop. The hum rose to a melody, low, dissonant, but hypnotic. And beneath it, something else. Whispers. They were saying my name. Eli. Ellie. Ellie. The voices echoed from every direction. And then suddenly, one voice cut through the rest. Sharp, human, and terrified. Help me. I turned the light toward the sound and froze. It was Connor. He was standing at the far end of the corridor, soaked in red light. His uniform was torn, eyes wide and bloodshot. Connor, I whispered. You're supposed to be dead. He shook his head violently. They said I was integrated. But it's not me in there, Eli. It's not... He stopped mid-sentence, staring over my shoulder. I turned. Unit 7's door was open. The hum became deafening. The air rippled. A shadow poured from the doorway, not moving like smoke or liquid, but thinking. It shifted in patterns that almost made sense, almost formed shapes I recognized. Arms, a face, my face. Connor screamed. I ran. The hallway lights flickered as I sprinted back to the booth. The metal floor vibrated so violently I could barely stay upright. When I slammed the booth door shut, the sound dulled, but didn't stop. It was inside the walls now. The monitors showed chaos. Every feed was full of movement, shapes sliding out of the open vaults, crawling toward the center of the facility. All except one. Unit 7. That feed showed the booth, me inside it, watching the screens, breathing hard. But the version on the monitor wasn't panicking. He was calm, smiling faintly. He raised his hand, palm out, pressing it against the screen, and behind the glass, a wet, human hand pressed back. "Eli," said the radio, crackling. It was Marla again, but this time her voice wasn't distorted. It was mine. "Step inside, Eli. That's where you belong. You've been chosen." The monitors began to hum with that same unbearable tone. My teeth ached. My vision swam. I backed toward the corner, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. "I'm not going back in there," I said. "You already did," my voice replied through the radio. I dropped it. The humming reached a peak, then stopped. All the monitors turned black. The booth lights went out. The silence that followed was so heavy it made my lungs ache. Then, from somewhere just outside the door, I heard a single knock. Knock. Then another. Knock. Then a voice, soft, identical to mine, whispered through the glass, "You left the door open." When I came to, I was sitting in the booth chair. The lights were normal again. The monitors showed clean, empty hallways. All the doors were sealed. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined everything. A panic attack, a blackout. But on the console, a new paper had been printed. I didn't touch it. I just leaned close enough to read. Phase complete. Await final replacement. The clock on the wall read 6 a.m. Shift over. I stood shaking and walked toward the exit. As I reached for the badge scanner, my reflection in the glass panel moved a half second before I did. Like it was showing me what came next. And when the door finally unlocked, the reflection smiled first. I don't remember leaving the facility, but I remember the sound my name made when someone else said it. Using my voice. That morning I woke up in my own apartment, or at least that's what it looked like. My keys were on the counter. My jacket hung neatly on the chair where I never leave it. Coffee was already brewed, steam rising from a cup I hadn't poured. And sitting beside it was a folded note. Shift. Successfully completed. Report tonight. At 11:30 p.m. The handwriting was mine. I told myself it was fatigue, a hallucination brought on by no sleep and too much fear. But my body didn't feel tired. It felt new, rested in a way I couldn't explain. When I looked in the mirror, something about my reflection felt slightly off. The eyes were clearer maybe, or deeper, or more certain of something I hadn't yet realized. I tried calling Marla. No answer. I checked the job posting online. It was gone. The company name, the listing, even my application confirmation email, all deleted. My browser history, blank. That's when I noticed the small bruise at the base of my neck, perfectly circular, like the rim of a syringe. I told myself I'd quit. I'd never go back. But when night fell, something strange happened. At exactly 11 p.m., every light in my apartment flickered twice. My phone powered on by itself, screen white, displaying one line of text, "You're late." Then the call came. No number, just static on the line, and under it, breathing, my own. I don't remember driving there. I remember headlights cutting through fog, the security gate opening before I even stopped. The facility looked different this time, brighter, cleaner, like it had been scrubbed and rebuilt overnight. Marla was waiting in the booth, or something that looked like her. Her hair was the same, her voice calm as ever, but her eyes didn't blink in rhythm with her words. They blinked too late, too deliberate. "You made it back," she said. "I wasn't planning to," I replied. "You were never meant to plan anything. You're just meant to continue." That line made no sense, until she handed me a clipboard with the night's checklist. At the top, primary subject, Eli Ward. Status, integration nearly complete. My breath caught. I dropped the clipboard. "What does this mean?" I demanded. "It means you've done well," she said softly. "The others took longer to accept it." Others, Connor, Jensen, Morales. The first one's always the hardest. Her tone was too gentle, too final, like a doctor reassuring a patient seconds before anesthesia. The intercom crackled. The voice that came through wasn't Marla's this time. It was mine. "Security log 5A, begin integration test, phase 2. Marla, if it was still her, nodded toward the hallway. "Unit 7 is waiting." I wanted to run, but my legs didn't feel connected to the thought anymore. They moved without me, guiding me down the red-lit corridor. The humming had returned, faint at first, then swelling with every step. The vault doors were all sealed now, but each one pulsed faintly, breathing in rhythm with my heartbeat. When I reached Unit 7, the door slid open on its own. Inside was a single chair facing a wall of glass. Behind the glass, a control room, and sitting inside that room was me. He wore my uniform, moved like I did, except when he turned his head, his mouth curved into that same slow, knowing smile I'd seen on the monitor before. "Who are you?" I whispered. "You," he said. "The version that made it out." I stepped closer. The glass rippled slightly, like water disturbed by sound. "That's not possible," I muttered. "You said the same thing last time." He raised his hand. I didn't mean to mirror him, but I did. Our palms pressed together through the barrier. The surface was ice cold. A pulse ran through me. Electric, consuming. The hum rose again, louder, and the glass dissolved into mist. The world tilted, folded, and for a second I was inside both bodies, watching me watch me. Then I felt something pushing inside my mind, rearranging, smoothing the edges of my panic. "Stop. Please stop," I shouted. The other me smiled. "You already said that too." The lights flickered. For an instant I saw what the reflection really was. Not flesh, not even human. A hollow outline filled with static and memory. Something wearing the shape of who I'd been. Then, just as suddenly, the world went black. When I came to, I was sitting in the booth again. The checklist on the desk read, "Primary subject replaced. New operator authorized." The monitors showed a new feed, Unit 7's door closed tight, and someone walking down the corridor in my uniform. Marla's voice came through the intercom. "Welcome back, Eli. Shift begins now." I looked down at my hands. They were steady, too steady. My heartbeat gone. The air didn't feel cold anymore. I turned to the window. The reflection staring back at me smiled on cue. "Integration complete," it whispered. And though I tried to scream, the voice that came out wasn't mine anymore.